Hey, so sorry about that. I ended up getting a phone call in the middle of the conversation. So I'm going to do different things, and you could choose to do different things for each space, right? So we're going to do things on each space. So let's resolve these. I just realized I wanted to resolve this first, but this costs me resources. Like I have to pay 5 to do one of these actions. And I got to make sure I actually have the resources, and I don't. So I can't do this first. I wanted to. But so what I have to do then is I have to do this one first. And as noted, I'm going to get 14 bucks or 14 resources. And then I'm going to spend 2 of those 14 to add prosperity equal to population. So I'm going to actually add a net gain of 12. So we're going to go to 14, 15, 16. Okay, so so then I'm going to grab some resources off the board here. The population for this is 3, and I only have room though for 2. Now what I wanted to do was I wanted to put the refugees there first, because then I could have increased it by 4, and that's real unfortunate, to be quite honest. Because that would have been a gangbusters one to do. But anyways, I was able to add just 2 to that, even though I theoretically could have done 3. There's no more room. The population, of course, I know it's hard for you to see on the camera. It's that little 3 that you see right there. So the way the rule works is the prosperity can only be as much as the population. So this one, for example, has a population of 1. So it has more prosperity because it initially had a population of 2. But during the epoch, when we adjust things, this one's going to go away. And it's going to look like this at the end of the epoch, because a population of 1 can only support 2 cubes. And this is during the Roman era. When you get to, autonomy, the top row of cubes goes away, and now we're only playing with the bottom row. I haven't really gotten there because, the game hasn't gotten there yet, but just to give you some insight, that's how that's going to play out. So by increasing the population to 4, I'm able to actually have a 4th cube in there. That's the reason why you see all these cities have 1 extra column for cubes, because the game rules are very clear. Population can go up by 1 or down by 1. They can never ravage this again. The population is down to 1, and they cannot ever. And actually, this one's uncontrolled. Boy, that was a good catch. So they can't ever make this go to 0, for example. And this one starts at a 3. They can never make it go below a 2. But the fact that that's uncontrolled means this goes down by 1 again. And okay, so that's that one. And then the other one is I'm adding 2 cubes here because the population is 2. And if you remember, we just added 4 golden cubes. So in doing so, this goes up by 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this goes up by 1, 2, 3, 4. And you might be thinking, okay, that just helped red. And when you're playing a multiplayer game and you're only playing as blue, the Cubitatis, you may not want to do that. During the epoch phase, we're going to collect taxes and all this other stuff. That is going to be based on the prosperity cubes, these gold cubes. So it really does help, but it's going to be during the epoch round, and it doesn't help now. Okay, and then so you want red to be doing well, but just not well enough to win. It's a wonderful tension in this game. My thing with coin games is they have a wonderful tension, but man, oh man, sometimes the rules are so overwhelming. The barrier of entry to get into this game is so high, especially if you're a solitaire player, because you have to figure it all out yourself. It really benefits having somebody to teach you the game, because they took the time to figure out all these rules, and it's so much better to have them explain things to you while you're playing. And then the first time you play, you're going to lose because you're not going to remember all these crappy rules. But then you come back for round 2 or round 3. The tension is what makes me come back to this game. And anyways, I can go on and on. I've not played all the coin games, but I have no doubt that they're all equally fun in different ways. I did say that some of them are just cube pushing games, and they are. By the way, Twilight Struggle was the one that I was trying to think of the name. I own that one. That one is always about putting cubes on or taking them off. I'm not as excited about that one. And what's really interesting is I did watch a video of some guys ranking all of them, and it is ranked in the lower end of their rankings, which does line up with my thoughts. I bought it because it was a 2-player, and I thought that from a solitaire perspective, it does have an AI bot. So if you're controlling only one AI bot, how hard can it be? And what's funny is this game is easier for me to manage than that one, and from a solitaire perspective. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. And it's largely because these barbarians have a solid AI that's really not that complex, and what they need to do is pretty simple. Anyways, enough of that. Okay, so let's finish our action. So we now have 3 things we need to do for rule. So I'm going to be putting 2 refugees on the board, and that's 5 resources each. So that's going to cost me 10. That hurts. But from the blue player's perspective, that is top priority. That is more important than having resources for blue. So we're going to spend 10 there, and then we're going to convert 2 into wealth, which is also a priority for blue. Probably some of you who've played coin games or this one before might actually criticize me for, because I'm this far into the game, turn 3 or whatever, and I haven't done it yet. So just bear with me. We're going to do it with at least one of our actions. So that's 10 plus 2 is $12. So we've only did a net gain of 2. So if I go 10 down and then 11, 12, I'm actually back to square one. I'm back to the 4 resources I started with. So I spent everything that I gained. But I would tell you that this was a well-spent turn. So my wealth is going to go up by 1, and that's indicated by this marker. And more importantly, the refugee markers are going to give us a +1 pop. And that is huge. So we now have a population of 4 here instead of 3. And then the other one, of course, I got to find another 4. Here we go. And then this one is now a population of 4 instead of 3. Now, what does that help us? Well, like I said, you can get more prosperity, so it sort of helps red. But I just added 2 population under British control. So now this goes up by 1, 2, and we're back into winning numbers. Okay, that's one reason. So the net effect of this is that basically the population left this region because barbarians are attacking, and they went to a safer, more protected region. Now, why did I pick my big population center areas? In all honesty, it's just because it's easier to defend. It's on the roads, so the cavalry can defend them. This is not on a road. I could have increased the population of this and restored it back to its start. I don't want to, because this is all homeland to the Saxons, so they're going to be invading that again and again and again the whole game. I contemplated this one because this is very well defended right now, but it's the same reason. It doesn't help the Sax. It doesn't help me. So these more juicy areas that are deeper inland, they're going to be harder for the barbarians to go after. So that's why I did it. Now, I could have increased the population of the city. But if you'll notice, there's no extra columns for cubes, prosperity cubes. So it doesn't really help as much. And so, anyways, I think that's, the highest level summary I can give there. So we've taken our turn. So now it's red's turn. And I didn't even think about what red should do, but red wants to intercept. But here's the problem. We have a limited command. Limited command means that we only get to pick one location. Now, this is a perfect time to discuss nuances in the rules. So, what does one location mean? one location is here. And so here you could see the cost is 2 resources per move origin space. So does that mean that I can attack as many locations as I want? Or can I only attack one location? I can move my troops from as many origin spaces as I want. It's 2 per, okay? Limited command, in this type of situation, you have to be really careful. It's the origin space that's limited. So I can pick one origin space and move cavalry from there. I can attack the entire bloody board if I want. The number of spaces I'm moving them to does not matter. That's not limited. What's limited is the number of origin spaces I choose. So I already have, for example, cavalry here, so I can choose to attack that, and there is no origin space. I can just attack that, and if I pick some other origin space like this one, which has 4 cavalry, I can choose to move one there, I can move one here, I can move one, I can go attack as many spaces as I want. Now, there's some restrictions. The first one is, of course, I can't go here because it's no road. Same with up there. There's no roads up there. I can do a march action, which would move me into the space, but I don't get to do an attack in the same turn. And this is where the cavalry are fantastic, but you got to understand their limitations. The barbarians can go after those hilly regions or these swampy regions, and the cavalry really can't do much to help. Those regions are just out of reach for the cavalry. So red doesn't care about them as much. Now, blue might, especially the region with hills, so that's some of the yin and yang with this game. Okay, so what do I want to do? Well, I think that this one region is going to be the region I'm going to pick. Another really good region would be this one, but I'm going to leave it be. So I'm going to spend the 2 resources. So I'm going to spend blue's resources, of course, and they are now down to 2. And like I said, I can pick as many locations for them to move to as I want. So I'm going to move here. I'm going to move there. And what we're trying to do is we want to kill barbarians, right? And so I'm going to go everywhere that a barbarian is on a road. And this is where the AI sort of gets tricky again. If you're a human player, you avoid the roads. What green did up there and over there was fantastic. What the Saxons did here is also fantastic. So that's some of the thing where the AI bots, they can fall a little bit short. I really would have put in the decision tree at one level of priority or another that they would avoid roads. Now, if they did attack a road, to me it would require a maximum, a 3d4 die roll or whatever. But anyways, back to the game. Now, one thing I'm not clear on is it says move to and fight raiders. So could I have just fought raiders, but even if nobody moved there? And here's a perfect example. This one here has enough army to kill those raiders. I don't need to move anybody there. I think if I remember correctly, we played that you have to follow it exactly as it says. You have to move cavalry, and it says and or federati from adjacent spaces or along maintained roads with friendly control, and then we get to battle. So to be able to attack here without moving troops there would have been a battle command, not a intercept. So I think at minimum I have to move 1 here in order to be able to trigger the intercept. Okay, and then just looking at these other ones, I do have some decent armies here. There's only 3 of them. But I have to move at least 1 to trigger it. So I'm going to do that. And then same with here. I'm going to move just 1. And then over here, I need to move 2. So that's what's risky, is now I'm leaving this undefended. So I have to be careful because this one is juicier for me. I may just leave it be. I may have to leave it be. So I'm actually going to leave these 2 back here because I want to defend this. This one would be nice to defend Oh. Sorry, just deep in thought here. Yeah, I don't want to make this vulnerable, so I'm going to let him go. So what I could do is I could move one here who will kill two of theirs, and then when they try to attack back, they only do half damage, so it won't kill the cavalry, because the cavalry requires a full damage to die, but it will kill this guy, the blue here. That's not the end of the world. So I think I could win, and I would be able to recover the plunder. The problem is that we spent the money to replenish this, so if we recover the plunder, there's nowhere for it to go. That's the first issue. The second issue is I would then have one of my cavalry over here, which is nice because that helps defend that region, but I don't have enough cavalry to defend my 4 population region, which is also going to have more prosperity. So I think what I'm going to do is just leave it be. We're going to attack everywhere else. I could have left this one be, but okay, we're going to just leave it as is. Okay, so first thing we got to do is roll to see if they get away with it, because they're in their home terrain. So I think a 4, 5, or 6. You can see I rolled a 4, and we'll make sure. But the Raiders, they roll to evade in their home terrain a 4 to. Oh, sorry. It's a 4 to 6, just to the right of my thumb here. That's to evade in their home terrain. So these Raiders evaded, and I failed to get them. So now we move to this one, and it's the same thing. I rolled a 2, so they did not evade. So then we meet them in the field of battle, and I'm going to do my charge. These kill 2 each, and so boom, one of the prosperity will make it back. The other one does not. It goes off the board, and then all 3 of these die, and we do gain a prestige for that. So prestige goes up to 5, and yes, the prosperity went up by 1 as well. So this is Red's way of restoring its power. And what I was trying to get at earlier, the limited command limited us to 1 region that we could move from, but look at how much I'm able to do with that. So this intercept command is super powerful for the Dukes, especially if you have a lot of cavalry in one location. Okay, moving on. Now we go to the Scotty. The Scotty's home terrain is mountains. So this isn't, or hills or whatever it's called. This is not a hill. So this is, they don't get to evade. Well, actually they do. Hold on. So in their home terrain, they evade on a 4 to 6. Other rough fen or hills on a 5 or a 6. And if they're on clear, it's a 6 only. Okay, so, or they could try to ambush. So they're going to try to evade, and only a 6 is going to matter for them. I rolled a 5, so they failed. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to roll for the other one. That's also a 5. So neither one of them was able to evade, so now we're just going to do Slaughterfest. So here you can see I'm going to kill 2, 4, 6. So 2, 4, 5 are gone. We're going to restore 1. The other one's out of the box. Okay, and then over here, actually nothing happens because we decided not to go there. So I rolled a die for them, but that was not important. Okay, so that means our prestige goes up by 1 again. This goes up by 1, and we're now back into winning score. The prosperity goes up by 1, and that makes that go up by 1 again. So red is doing quite well. That brings us to the end of the turn. So we become ineligible, and these both become eligible. All right, so this card is gone, and now the St. Patrick's card comes into play. And as you can see, green will be first, and then the Saxons will be next. And once again, we're still playing this game where we're both tagging. So now the Saxons may pass this round, and why? Because look, this is a priority shield here. And this one, if we took it, it sets the Oceanus Septentrionalis to patrolled, which it already is, as a reminder. It's already patrolled. And then here, Saxon raids may always use Septentrionalis, but reduced also for Germanicus patrol, if any. So, and then the Saxons get to do a free raid. Normally the Saxons can't use this C-zone. And what this is saying is that they will be able to, always, but it's reduced for the Germanicus patrol. So whatever the Germanicus patrol is, it's reduced. And right now there is no patrol, so it's not reduced for that. But it would be reduced by this. So, interesting. It's an interesting one. And then, of course, they get to do a free raid, which I think is the most valuable thing to them because they're out of money. So you may see them pass so they can get this one next round, which is going to screw over blue. Because if they go first, then red gets to go, and then blue doesn't get to do anything. But we'll see how that plays out. So we're going to start here, and as it shows, green is first. So let's pull up our AI chart. Sorry, there's so many of them here. Okay, first thing we do is Scotty has raiders in 2+ clear and or 15+ raiders on the map and or greater than 2d6 plunder. There's a lot of and ors on this. Let's roll for the plunder. They need to have 6 or more plunder on the map. You can see there they have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they have 8 plunder. And you can see that it's an and or. The or is satisfied. Okay, the or is satisfied. Do they have raiders on 2 clear spaces? No, because we just killed the one. Do they have 15 raiders on the map? Well, they have 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They don't have the 15, but it doesn't matter because it says and or. So the or is satisfied, so it becomes yes, they're going to return home. Sorry, the camera was not focused. So they're going to return home. The or is satisfied, it becomes yes, they return home. Okay, so what does it say? It says plunder or clear, or would roll settle if limited. Okay, so they're going to do it with the most plunder. All right, what does all that mean? Well, now we got to go look up the actual commands for that faction as if you were a human. So they're going to return. So the return is they're going to bring the plundered booty home. Any space with Scotty Raider or Warband as desired. It's free to do. Transfer all plunder carried by Scotty there to Scotty Renown 1 for 1, and then remove the raiders. Okay, so that part is easy. So they're going to do the return. Plunder or clear or would roll settle. So what does that mean? Well, the return can do an entreat or a settle. Okay, so when you look at the feet there, they're going to try to, I'm sorry, let me scooch this out a little bit. They're going to try to do a settle first, and then only if they can't do that will they try to entreat. And then of course they're only going to return where there's the most plunder. They're not going to necessarily try to return otherwise. Oh, never mind. Hold on. Let me back up. They're going to return if there's plunder or if there's no plunder, meaning that there's raiders there, but they don't have any actual plunder. Or they're going to return if it rolls a settle. So, okay, let's do one thing at a time. Everybody on there is going to return. So, I apologize. I'm sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do. All 3 of them are going to return. So then what we have to figure out is, are they going to settle or are they going to entreat? Okay. The entreat is actually easier to explain first. What it does is it converts the civitates to Scotty. We literally convert the blue forts into ours, and then the blue troops into ours. So it's straight up boom. There's not even a battle. We just convert them. But here's the sticky point. It's only in a hills region with a Scotty warband, okay? And it does cost 4 renown to do. And what you do is you replace 1 hill fort and 2 militia with a Scotty settlement and warbands respectively. So a perfect example is right there in Novice. They would, if they spend 4, this would get replaced with a settlement, and then this would become a warband. So we'd add a 3rd green cube, and this cube would get replaced. Which, by the way, that's how like Colonial Twilight plays. When I was talking about how you just take cubes away and put cubes on, that's sort of how it plays. It's that kind of action. Okay, it sounds like an awesome action, but you got to understand that green does want to put a few settlements on the board, but that's not how they win. And they're only going to do that in a hill with a Scotty warband before battle or after return. So this is after the return happens, and it's only going to happen if the settle does not happen. So you got to keep all that in your mind. Now, settle only occurs in one space, one and only one space. So it's possible they're going to try to settle, and that means we would never get to the entreat, because you do one or the other. You don't do both. You can only pick 1 feat, okay? And you can see here, max 1 space, and then, max 1 region, okay? The entreat, they actually have a perfect scenario for an entreat to happen. So let's do the settle. We're going to resolve this actually before they retreat, and that's interesting because that answered my question, right? I should have thought about this scenario. We always do this before they actually retreat or return, because you have to count how many barbarians there are to see if your settlement is successful. Okay, so if settle can place no peace, entreat. All right, so we have to determine, can settle place a peace or not? So it does require some magic, and so let's go over here and look at the settle. So it has to be a space with Scotty pieces outnumbering all others. Okay, so right there we cannot do a settle. There's 4 Scotty and there's 6 Civitati pieces, because the hill forts count as a piece. You always, when it uses the word piece, it's not troops, it's not soldiers, it's pieces. So that's 4 to 6, so they lose there. Here it's 3 to 2 on the plane here. So that is a candidate. The bigger candidate is there. There's 4 to 0 in the hills over there. That's actually a wonderful place for them to settle, to be quite honest. All right. So, if at or adjacent to returning raiders, they can roll 1d6 for each such raider. If at or adjacent to, okay, so they can actually try to settle adjacent to their, that's interesting. Roll 1d6. Oh, never mind. It's got to be at or adjacent to returning raiders, period. You have to pick a space that has Scotty pieces in it. So that also has to be true. Okay, roll 1d6 for every raider. So the more raiders you have, the better your chances. If you get a 5 or a 6, then a warband gets put in that space. Then you can pay 3 renown to place 1 Scotty warband per Scotty settlement, which you can't do if there's no settlement at all. Or if Scotty control, 1 warband per population, or replace 2 Scotty warbands with a settlement at an empty site. So that's the important piece here, is now, do we have, I'm looking up that control definition again. You have to have a stronghold in order to control a region. So, it says that they would settle, can place no piece, then we entreat. So if you can't place any pieces, you would entreat. Here, you can place a piece, because we're going to roll 4 dice, and if I get a 5 or a 6 on any of those 4 dice, and for every one, in fact, I'm going to put a Scotty warband in that location. So it, quote, can place a piece. All right? After that piece is placed, I cannot place additional Scotties per settlement because there's no settlements there. I also cannot place 1 per population because we don't have control yet. But I could, if somehow 2 Scotty warbands were there, I could put a Scotty settlement. So that's the situation that we have. So the answer is yes, we can settle. And unfortunately, this is going to be less successful, in my opinion, than if they would have just entreated over there. Entreating would have been way more powerful. And here's where I'm going with this. We're going to be lucky if we get 2 warbands out of the 4 dice that we roll. That would make a settlement, but then we would have 0 troops to defend the settlement because there's no war. You have to convert the warbands into a settlement. So at a best case scenario, you're going to have an empty settlement with no troops to protect it. And that's a bad news thing because it's real easy to take that back over. Now, the only good news about it is that the Kivitatis only has 1 militia here, and the chances of it marching over there to take control is slim because they would actually have to do several turns of prep and setup to even go there to cause any trouble. So anyways, that according to the AI chart, that's what they're going to do. So let's do it. So we're going to roll 4 dice. And I rolled a 6 and a 5 right there. So that exact scenario came up. And then these 2 are less than 5. So what's going to happen is we're going to create 2 Scotty warbands, which are the full cubes. So these would go on that location. But then it says for 3 renown, we can replace 2 with an empty site. And so they're going to do the settle at most Scotty raiders in or adjacent to hills or a vacant site. Place settlement only if 1+ Scotty warband would remain in space. Oh, okay. So there we go. They actually thought of my concern. So, and if there's no 3, pay to place the warbands, which they can't do. These 2 are going to go on, but there won't be a settlement. Okay? So that answers my concern there. So 2 warbands are going to appear, but there won't be any actual settlement on the location. And they won't have control yet. They have to build a settlement to get control. Now, everybody else is returning. So you can see here we have 2. And then off map, I'm returning the 4 raiders up in the northern Scotland region. And just to show you, there's 2 more of those. So 2, 4, 6, they just got $8. They made a nice haul. Oh, crap. It's never good to drop your gold cubes on gold cubes. So let me count these. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay. So green just made some blank. So they get 5, 6, 7, 8. And they didn't quite settle, but they added warbands, which is from the settle action. All right, I forgot to indicate what we were doing. So they are doing the command plus feat. Now it's Black's turn, and we got to look at the Black flow chart. I like using colors instead of names, so yes, this is the Saxons. Okay, do they have raiders in 2 clear and or 15 raiders on the map? All right, they don't have them in clear. And you can see here that they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 raiders are on the map. So that doesn't work. But then we're going to roll 2d6, and I rolled a 7. Okay? Do they have more than 7 loot? No, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's it. So they are not returning yet. So the answer is no. Do they have an effective event? No, they absolutely do not. So then it comes here. Are they first or second on the upcoming card? The answer is yes. Because remember, the upcoming card has the shield. So they are first or second. And so the answer is yes. And as you can see, they're going to pass. So they had no money. So they're passing, and in doing so, it says, I know it's hard to read, barbarians get +1 renown, and they remain eligible. Okay, so they only get $1 for this. Now red and blue get $3. So that ends the round. So they're choosing not to do an action. So now green becomes ineligible, and now we have 3 eligible. And that's a pretty common thing in this game for this to start happening. And so then we move the card over. We know black's going first, then red would be second, and then blue right now is getting the shaft. But let's look at these first. See, like right here, red may actually pass to take this. Step warriors, train places 2 cavalry, not 1 per fort. And this is for the rest of the game. That is quite good. Or if the barbarians play it, it remove any 5 cavalry to casualties. That is quite bad. So it's in red's best interest to maybe pass so he can claim this event, or at least prevent them from taking it the next round. If red plays this round, I guess blue goes first, but blue doesn't care about cavalry, so this is where they can sort of screw each other over, right? But green will be eligible, and green would take this in a heartbeat, because killing 5 cavalry is pretty darn good. Okay. So we move to the next round. We have this situation, and yes, black's going first. So we're going to go back to the flow chart, and I think it's pretty obvious. Nothing changed here. This changed to a yes, and now we're going to execute the event and use the shaded text, if any. So the event is Saxon raids can always use this ocean up here, but they have to deal with patrols not only from this ocean, but also from this one. And this, of course, is for the rest of the game. And they get to do a free raid now, which I think is probably the most valuable part of this, is they get to raid for free. And free raids means that they can do the maximum dice. So, so what do I do with these cards? This is permanently in the game. Remember, I'm going to grab this and put it on its shaded side, and I always lay it over the picture, so that way we know that this is in effect down here and not this. Now, it's somewhat obvious because this is the only one that has an end game marker. This one does not, but it's still just a nice habit to do that. And this, of course, is impacting the Saxons. So it's nice to place this by the Saxon player, which, of course, is a bot in this case. So I'm just going to put it over here, just like so. It's probably not going to survive because I keep moving my sheets around, so I'll just put it there behind the Civitatis for now. You can get a lot of these cards, by the way. It can get a little unwieldy to have to manage them all. All right, so they get to do a free raid. So the only thing I need to look up is how many raids do they get to do? So it's up to 3 spaces, as you can see, and it's going to be a 3d4. Okay, so then what's their priority for raiding? You can see that here. If they're rolling 3d4, they're going after 2+ prosperity, where least subtraction of raiders, so they're basically no patrols. And then on a 1 to 4, they go to the highest difference, or on a 5 to 6, they're going into the fens. So I'm going to roll 3 dice. This one's going into the swamp. The other 2 are going to go into the highest difference. Okay, so let's figure out what our options are and figure out where they're going to raid. Okay, so I just realized I forgot to take these off from the last action. all right, a free raid does not mean they get to do a feat. So they're not going to get to ravage or anything like that unless the event says so. But they will get to do the raids. They don't have to pay anything, which is already a nice little perk. So where are they going to go? Obviously, this is in the fens. This is where the highest difference is. They don't give us any more direction from there. So we have to do the random thing. So let's do the in the fens one first. So this is a 1-3. So 1-3 is here, and this is the first swamp, Trinovantes, which would be this one right here. So I'm going to use a gray. No, it doesn't matter. They're all 3d4. Never mind. So they're going to raid here. And then the other two are just raiding actually from the same ocean because there's no patrol. And they want to go after just anywhere that has 2+ prosperity. Now, the good news is every place has 2+ prosperity. If you look, it doesn't matter. So we're going to once again do a random. And so you can see it's a 3-4. 3-4, go down. Oh, hold on. What non-swamp area? Parisi. See, Parisi right there is a non-swamp area that's along this ocean. Everywhere else, though, is swamp. And they're not going to raid London, so don't worry about that. So unless Parisi is in this lineup, we're going to go basically to the first swamp. And we go up this way, Cantiaci, which is, once again, this region. They really love hitting that one. And then if we keep going for the next one, you can see here there's 3 swamp before you ever get to Parisi. So Trinovantes is the one again. Can I raid the same one twice? The answer is yes, you can. So we're going to go ahead and let them do that. Now, arguably speaking, you could say, well, hey, shouldn't we roll a second time for, because we're really randomizing 2 attacks. So let's do that. So I rolled a 1 and a 2. This is 1 and 2, and it's Cantiaci. So actually, they are going to raid a second time, but it's going to be that one. Okay. So this little randomizer thing is interesting. I think you probably can tell that when I play this alone off camera, I just do my own determinations. But it's your game. Play it however you like. This is the way the rules indicate it. And it's interesting. I'll leave it at that. Okay, let's do this one first. So we're going to roll 3 dice. And there is no patrol, so they're going to be able to land freely. And look at this roll, 2-1-1. That's only 4 raiders. 1, 2, 3, and 1 more for 4. That is awful. But they do take 2 loots. Instead of 2 utes, they're taking 2 loots. All right, and the prosperity goes down by 2. And they're definitely not attacking. There's no way that piddly little army is going to do anything. Now, here's what's interesting. If you recall, I know I get long-winded with my rules explanation sometime. These are 2 distinctly separate raids. So whatever raiders are already there are not going to help with this raid that's going to start. And then, after this raid finishes, the next raid that enters is not going to help either. And I just realized the second raid's not going to go here. And why is that? Because the criteria for the raid is it has to be a place with 2 prosperity, and the first raid is potentially going to take those prosperity and there won't be any left. So we need to pick another location, and the next one would be Iceni, which is here. So, but it's the same deal. There's a lot of raiders here, but they're not going to help with the raid. So let's go ahead and do Iceni. And here you can see it's 4, 8. That's 10 more raiders. Oh my gosh. So 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh my gosh, that's 10 raiders. And there's nothing to even attack. But they do take the 2 prosperity. So now we go to this last one. That's 4, 8, that's 11 raiders. That's really impressive, but here's our problem. We don't have 11 raiders. There's 1, 2. 2 total raiders. So they will still get to raid, just those 2. And what's crazy is they're gonna be able to loot. They just won't be able to do any battles. If there was 11 of them there, they would have maybe been able to destroy that fort. But they can at least take the 2 plunder with the piddly 2 that was able to go. Another thing we could have done is we could have resolved this one first instead of that one. I honestly don't know what I don't know, right? I didn't know I was going to roll gargantuan numbers for both of those raids. But they still did their primary objective. They just took all the plunder and caused red to fall out of winning. And that's what the barbarians are here for. It's a service, a public service. So they took the event, by the way. That was the thing that they did. Okay, so with that being said, this event card, even though I set it off to the side, red's next and then blue. So we still got to use it for turn order. So red gets to do a full command with a feat, which is very impressive. But red is very likely going to pass, so he can get this next card. So he's going to do that. He's going to pass, and then he gets 3 resources, which is sort of cool for him. He gets to spend all of blue's resources, and then blue has the stroke of the best luck ever. It gets to do a full command and a feat. So it doesn't need to do, there's no refugees anymore. So now what it's going to do is it's going to do the rule again to get wealth, and it's going to do trade. So we're going to do it yet again. Now, blue could try to start attacking people and gaining territory, but it needs money to be able to move troops and to do things with troops. So it's going to gain 14 resources. We do have the option to replenish prosperity. Let me look real quick. Remember, it has to be a place with a town. So like we could replace the prosperity here, for example, but we could never do that here because there's no town. We also can't replace prosperity in a place like here, even though it could use it because there's no town. Those are 2 hill forts. So there are some restrictions. And so if you look everywhere, we could add prosperity to these 2, which we added the population. How much does it cost? It costs just 1 resource to do that. Well, that's not the end of the world, really. So yeah, we'll go ahead and just go up by 12 resources instead of 14. But then we're going to pay 6 more, so we're going to only go up by 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That puts us to 8. So what are we doing here? Well, first thing we're doing is we're adding 4 cubes on. Since this has a population of 4, we're adding the 4 cubes on. That does help red. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. The next thing they're going to do is, and I did this without showing you, but we're going to pick 3 spaces. We're going to pay 2 resources in each space. That's the reason why I spent 6. So we gained 14. We spent 2 to add the prosperity. And then we're spending 6 more here. So the reason we're spending 6 is because we get to add 1 wealth for every 2. And we get to do that 3 times. So our wealth is going up 1, 2, 3 spaces. Now, why am I helping red? Some of you might be worried about that. Some of you, you got to remember, I'm playing both red and blue, and at some point I have to pick one of these to control for the rest of the game, and the other one's going to become the AI, and the one I pick has to be the loser. So if I make red, lose this game really badly, I'm going to end up controlling red and having to pick up the pieces. So I want both of these factions to be, tip-top as much as possible because that benefits me. So that's sort of the reason why I'm helping. Now, if you're playing a multiplayer game, maybe you don't spend those 2 resources to help red get prosperity back. I'm pretty confident that during the epoch round, somewhere in here, we're getting taxes or something that would give us money. And that money is based on the number of prosperity that's on the board. So I'm pretty sure that blue benefits from having the prosperity in that kind of way, but that's the only way it benefits them. It definitely benefits red much more. Okay, so we're done with that turn, and hopefully you're appreciating it. It's going a little quicker. There's not as much teaching, and maybe now it's just all strategy talk, right? So we already know this card's going to be the active one, and red will go first. That means red and green are actually together, and now we have this situation. And bear in mind, green has the pivotal event situation because they are now inactive while green is active. So we got to go check that again. So this card would be the active card we would start with, and then the one for the next round, oh my gosh, this is the green above all green cards right here. This Neil Nugalak, or however you pronounce it, is the card that green drools over. And in fact, you can see red and blue won it too. So what this is, there's a space on the board. You can see it right there. You can see it looks like there's some horses there. It's called Neil Nugalak. What it is it's a raiding space. So when you do a raid action, one of your raid locations can be that space, and what you do is you store raiders there, and then they build up. So every time you raid that place, you just get more and more raiders into that location. And then at some point later in the game, when you do a raid, you can choose to unleash all of those raiders all at once onto one territory. So those raiders, however many you built up, come as one massive army, and you don't have to roll the die or anything. So it's pretty powerful for the Scotty player. Now, what does this event do? Scotty raids may target that location box, and then may add any from there as extra raiders into other target spaces. So actually, you get to roll the die. You still get to roll the die, and then you just get to add more from the box, however you like. So super powerful for green. Now green is going this round, and remember, this is the card for the next round. So green would like to maybe pass to get this card. Now red and blue would like it as well, because they can reduce the Scotty raids by minus raider each space after patrol. So this was a typo. I remember this one. They get to reduce the raids by, that little minus sign means something. It's a typo in the card, folks. That card was supposed to have a number. So that part I know. I remember going into Board Game Geek, but let's see if it's written here. Right there. For the remainder of the game, one additional raider is removed from each Scotty raid target. So it's just one. And it's written here in the rule book, or playbook. So it would be, you reduce it by 1, but that's still very powerful for red and blue to do. So our situation though is red and green are going this turn, which is this card. So only black and blue would be eligible for this one if green doesn't somehow pass. So that's the first conundrum. The second one is green, because this condition is met, they may try to do this pivotal event. And the pivotal event, by the way, causes them to become ineligible for this turn, which actually makes them eligible for that turn. So there's some interesting things that are going to happen here. Conspiratio Barbarica. Okay, do they have a fort or 3+ cavalry and 20+ Scotty Raiders off map? No. So they're not going to do it yet. Nobody's destroyed a fort at all. And in fact, none of the cavalry have died either. So that's necessary. The Saxons have to be ineligible, which is true. And green has to be neither current nor the next card has to have, see this? If the next card has this, first or second. The next card right now does have it, so they're not going to do it. Okay, so for this card, red is first. And they can train places 2 cavalry, not 1 per fort. So red wants to do one of 2 things. They're either going to play the event to get that benefit for the rest of the game, or they're going to make sure they do a command that prevents the green player from playing the event. Because they don't want the barbarians to play this event. That's actually the more valuable piece, is preventing them from playing it. Being able to train 2 cavalry per fort instead of 1, that's going to be more helpful later in the game when cavalry actually start dying. Let's look at the map, like what's out there. Prestige, by the way, is how they win. And you can see that there's 2 sets of barbarians that are on roads, and there's a chance to get some prestige. A lot of it, in fact, because they already have 3 barbarians here, or 3 cavalry here, which by themselves can kill all these. This one would need some help, but there's a chance to kill those. And they would basically be able to wipe out 2 territories and get 2 prestige points. Now, is 2 prestige points, the cat's meow? Maybe, maybe not. But they also would get 2 more prosperity because they're going to be able to return one of these prosperity cubes to each location. And that's also quite valuable. So, it's actually a really tough choice. Being able to train 2 cavalry can be beneficial. So here's why. So you can train them on a space with a fort. It costs 3 resources per space for troops, 2 for prosperity. So in each space, you could pay 3 resources to place 1 cavalry per fort. And or if town or hill fort, up to 2 militia, then pay 2 resources in up to 2 regions to add prosperity equal to population. So instead of 1 cavalry per fort, you'd be able to do 2 per fort. You know what? I'm starting to like it less because as long as you have a lot of forts on the board, you're going to be able to place a lot of cavalry. You know what though? It's per space. You have to pay 3 resources per space. So for every space, you're likely only going to have 1 fort on that space. So basically, you're paying 3 resources for 1 cavalry. Whereas if you play the event card, you're going to get 2 cavalry for 3 resources. That's actually a good deal. This would be nice. But I'm actually going to do the event. So red will go ahead and do the event. And so yes, this is now ours. And I'm going to go ahead and put that here to indicate that. And we're going to set this on the lighter side to just remind us that that's the trigger. So doesn't help us at all right now, but I think later in the game it will. So then green's going to go, and this is going to be an interesting thing. I think they're going to pass. And the AI can end up doing this, by the way, where they pass a lot because they're looking for that next event card, just like the way black did. And it's going to burn them in some respects because they're losing a lot of actions. Okay, so do they have raiders? No, they do not. Is there an effective space? No, there is not. Are they first or second on the upcoming card? They are first. So they're going to pass. So green will pass, and they will stay eligible. And so what's going to happen is it's going to now be this situation for the next turn. And green goes up by 1 renown. So this Neo Nagalak is going to move over, and the next one is Andarita, Anorexia, I don't know, Anorexia. Okay, we can place Saxon Federati in Regni or Cantiaci, 3 warbands. Now, one thing I want to point out, in a multiplayer game, this is very valuable to you if you're Saxon. You can see here that the AI doesn't care about it, and if the AI were to take it, they would do the darker. Remember, normally the darker one is for the barbarians, and this is for us, right? But what the Saxon player will do, if he's really crafty, is he'll play this, and he can play the top half. Place Saxon Federati in Regni or Cantiaci, 3 warbands, and if none, 1 settlement. And so why would they do that? Why would they give Federati to red or blue? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number 1, it gets a settlement on the board that belongs to them. Now, granted, that settlement has a red or blue token on it because it belongs to them. But here's the deal. During the epoch phase, red or blue has to pay maintenance on them. And if they fail, then they revolt and turn into Saxon troops. So that's one thing, is you're going to make them pay for these Federati. And so you'll see the barbarian human players go after these events, not for the bottom part, but for the top. And they are allowed to force this on the other players. It's a really crafty thing you can do in this game. And there is a second reason. And you may recall that's their pivotal event. It's the one I was telling you that's really weak, because the way players can mitigate it is just never make Federati, right? Well, now, if there's Federati on the board, because we played this event, right? The Saxons put the Federati on the board. Then you play this card, and it removes all the markers, and then basically all the regions end up doing a battle with a shield wall against the Britons. So not only does it remove all the markers, that territory and everything becomes yours. So it's a way to just completely just take over territory and be a real jerk. So the AI doesn't do that to you. They only ever play the dark portion. So that's unfortunate, but just understand that in a multiplayer game, there's some pretty cool things that happen that don't quite happen for a solitaire. Okay, so first up, green is gonna play the event. It's not even a question. We know that's what they're gonna do. So we're putting them onto the event action. And I need to grab one of these. And yes, it's going to be the dark side. And I'm actually going to place it right here, because we know that green is now going to do Neo Nagalak, or however you pronounce it. Next is black. This one, I think they're going to do the command because they have 15 or more raiders on the map, absolutely. And I think they even have more than this amount in plunder. That's 4, yes they do. So they are going to do a return. Now, they also have a settle command, which is very different than the green settle. And you'll notice they don't have an entreat or anything like that. It's return and then settle. Okay, so they're for sure gonna do that. So black is not going to do anything else. They're not going to pass go, not collect $200. And then blue and red will be eligible again. And so you see how it sort of flipped back and forth there. Okay. So let's do, I'm not going to remove the troops yet, but let's just do the plunder, right? So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 plunder. That's a good run for them. All right, they were sitting on $1. So now they have 11, so that's 12. They have 12 renown. Now, you may hear me use cash, buck, resources, renown interchangeably. For the barbarians, it's technically called renown. For blue and red, it's called resources. You'll see me say cash, gold, whatever. It's all the same thing. But from a technical perspective, that's what it is. Okay. Now let's do the settle, which has got a lot of words to it, so we're going to have to parse through it. Add settlement, then population only where Saxon's able to end with control and 2+ warbands. Okay, so where certain to add something. Add or adjacent to returning raiders within 1 and 2. Sure to add most Saxon control. Most returning raiders in each. Count each only once. And then fen. So those are those priority. So the most returning raiders, of course, is here. And that, of course, is also fen, which matches that. But the add the most Saxon control, though, well, let's be clear. There's no room for a Saxon here. They can't add pieces there, and they can't add pieces here because the town and the forts are still fully intact. Okay? So the only place they can do it is here. And so if I were a human player, I would do this one in a heartbeat. So, and then what we do is we roll returning raiders, add settlement, add population, if not possible. Instead, pay renown only so as to place at least 2 warbands or any of free. Okay, what does that mean? Well, what it's telling us is it's giving us some direction for the actual command. So we're going to now go over here to settle. And so it costs 0 renown to settle, but it's 3 per space to place extra warbands. So let's see what it does. So at or adjacent to returning raiders, well, it's going to be at. Roll 1d6 for every raider. If there's a 4 to a 6, 4, 5, or 6, so notice this is better odds than the Scotty. The Scotty needed a 5 or a 6. The Saxons have a better chance. Place a Saxon warband in the selected space. Then, if desired, pay 3 renown to place 1 Saxon warband per settlement. There's no settlement, so we don't get to do that. 1 per population, don't get to do that. That's only if we had control. Or replace 2 Saxon with a settlement at an empty site, and or remove 3 Saxon warbands to add a population. That's what they meant by adding a population. It costs 3 Saxons to do that. Now, you only would do that, I think, if they have control. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. So let's go back and look at this again. Roll the returning raiders, which we'll do. They want us to add a settlement and then add population. Okay. If not possible, pay renown only so as to replace 2 warbands, total or any free. If no piece or population added, then there's no feat. Okay. So let's see how many warbands we're going to have here. We might have a lot. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh my gosh, that's 16. So we're going to roll these dice 4 times. And on a 4, 5, or 6, they're going to get a warband. So here's number 1. And I'm just going to set them here. 3 warbands. Here's number 2. I'm going to re-roll that one. 1 more warband. Here's number 3. 1 more warband. And here's number 4. Oh, crap. That was nasty. 2 more warbands. That's a lot of warbands, folks. Okay, so now I gotta clean up this mess and hope I didn't move too much. The good news, all the raiders are returning, so I don't have to worry about, was this raider here or was it there? I don't have to worry about that. And then all of these are returning. Okay, so now we have 2, 4, 6, 7 warbands. That's a lot of warbands. All right, so the AI says add settlement. So I'm reading this part up here. Add settlement, then population, only where Saxon's able to end with control, and 2+ warbands per settlement. Okay? So we're going to pay 2 for a settlement. My dog's going to start barking because someone's at my house. So 2 for a settlement. And then what it's saying is we have to have at least 2 to protect that settlement. So that's perfect. And then there's 3 left, which it's saying we're going to spend for a population. So this number 1 becomes a 2. And so they were able to increase their population. Why is that important? It's important because Saxon control is now in this region. And the population matters to them. So their Saxon control, instead of it being 1, is now 2. So that brings me to the end of the round. And so they're going to be now ineligible and they're eligible. And I'm going to go ahead and break here, and I will see you in a few minutes. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome.